And it's all about who's got the bigger butt.
Oh, yeah.
Who's got the bigger butt? The tweeter-in-chief mocked North Korea's Kim Jong-un yesterday, saying that the nuclear button on his desk is much bigger and more powerful, and his works.
God.
Is this kind of a crazy game we're playing?
You know, Trump needs to be medicated and hospitalized at this point, or he is going to just kill all of us. And, you know, my feeling is that probably they're getting closer to him in the Mueller investigation. And that's what this is about, a lot of it. It's like he'll blow the whole world up so his stupid sons don't have to go to jail.
I mean, I just keep on wondering, you know, is there some sort of theory here? Is there some sort of strategy that he's using? Because if truly he is just playing a game of chicken with a dictator in North Korea, we really are in trouble. I mean, people are talking about the 25th Amendment, and they're saying he's just not mentally fit to be the president. And I think if you're doing this, I mean, is there a mental fitness problem? We all know the ramifications of nuclear war.
My turn.
Not to be too heavy. Not to be too heavy,
no,
but
it's true.
First of all, not to bring too much levity to this, but when I first read the tweets last night, I was like, this is an intensely phallic thing to say. This seems to be about all whose is bigger in what context or another, which is why Nikki Haley needs to run for president. We need to have a woman one way or the other taking over. I will say, I keep having friends call me and text me about, like, is there really a button in the White House? Is it like boom and then we nuke? That's not how this works. I just want to say, first, the president will have to convene with military and civilian advisors in D.C. Once the decision is to strike, a senior official in the Pentagon War Room must formally authenticate the code. Then the launch crew takes over. There's a whole set of checks and balances. So while we're all paranoid, wait, I see something. But I think you may have.
your button may be bigger, Whoopi.
I got a big button. I got a big button. And you know what my button does? Nothing. Did it light up? My button used to light up, but my button's old.
We may have those checks and balances here, but he's dealing with a mentally unstable opponent who does not have those checks and balances, as far as I can tell.
Well, he's a dictator. He doesn't have to check or balance with any party. He just does his thing.
So why play this provocative game back and forth with someone who's almost as crazy as Trump, or maybe more?
Because there's exposure for Guam, there's exposure for Japan, there may be
American soldiers.
American soldiers. So
the reason we've avoided this before is because of the idea of mutually assured destruction.
That's right.
Yes.
And so we understand, like you said, the ramifications of nuclear warfare, and it's not as though we have no feasible way of understanding how this affects everybody, but it speaks to the larger picture of using social media as a platform to communicate and as a platform to implement policy, because he's pushing everyone into a corner by avoiding the natural way in which one makes policy and in which the Obama administration had to act. And so it is fascinating because social media prohibits you from having a constructive conversation, rather you make statements.
Well, is it scary
By the
to
way,
younger
that was
people?
a very good take for a 17-year-old.
Right.
I mean, very good take.
Yeah.
She is sharp as a tack.
Not that I didn't expect it, but I mean, when I was 17, I definitely didn't know national
We won't
policy.
hold your age against you.
Like
But
that.
you have to be more woke today, right? I mean, it's scary for young people when you have an administration that's playing chicken with North Korea?
I think part of it is being somebody who is, I'm turning 18 next month, and so I lived most of my young adult life under the Obama administration, and so there's a certain mental agility that had to come into play as soon as the Trump administration was brought into office.
Yeah.
Because there's an emergency to what is happening, and understanding that these policies that are being implemented will affect us, and healthcare affects us so directly.
But where are they?
All of these other states.
Where are the people in power besides Trump? Where is the Republican Party right now, who has all the power in the world to do something about this man? I mean, what do they need? A launch to convince them? What is it that will do it?
I think my question is, what do you want him impeached right this second?
I want him out of office
when we
immediately.
but when we were speaking,
no matter how they do it, I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe the 25th Amendment. Maybe that.
So for the Republicans that watch this show, and there are Republicans that watch this show.
Are you sure?
I'm 1,000. Yes, there are. And actually, like, I know it's like a funny joke, but this is The View, and we have different views, and Republicans have a place at this table as well. And part of what's going on. Thank you very much. And the one thing I will
not
say.
for nothing, but we've always known that.
Yes.
That's why we look for you. But go ahead. Go ahead. Let him finish the thought.
Hold on. Let me just clarify. I'm talking about the people in power, the Republicans in power. I'm not talking about people who are Republican.
Meaning, what will
They have
do?
less
But
power
you're
than they
asking-
have just as much or less power than I do.
You asked me a direct question about Republicans being in power. I know a few that are in power, Joy, one way or another. But I will say that yesterday we had a heated conversation about when it's time to panic, when it's time to talk about impeaching Trump. And the problem for a lot of conservatives is the day after President Trump was elected, you're already calling for impeachment. Yes, if he gets us into a nuclear war, obviously there's a conversation that should be taking place.
Maybe that's too
in worst
late,
case scenario. He has a core base of supporters, whether you like it or not. Clearly you don't like it. And his approval rating is the exact same place today that it was when he was elected president, with his core base of
So
supporters.
this is a country that's being ruled by the minority. That's not in the Constitution.
But here's
You know what?
here's another way to look at this. You know, because yeah, people were very freaked out. I think if Jeb Bush had become president, the conversations would be different. But, you know, you talked about the next day. Well, don't forget what happened the next day after Obama was elected. Mitch McConnell came out and said, we're not going to do anything. We're not giving him any help. Literally,
He's
just like that. He's going to be a one-term president.
Yeah.
So the rhetoric sucks whoever it is.
I wasn't calling for Obama to be impeached.
No, you
the day
weren't,
after
but
he
they
was-
kind of were, and they were from the time the idea that he wasn't an American was floated. That's all we heard.
I never said
But,
that.
No,
I
I know
never
you
part of
didn't say
anything
it
like that.
But I'm not saying you've done it, just like you didn't say Joy did. But I'm just saying that this idea that people are panicking is quite real because it's been a long time for folks, I think. Go ahead.
I understand why last night, because again, every time Trump tweets about anything having to do with North Korea, my phone explodes. And I will say, yes, of course, even last night when I was watching the news and it came up, I was like, what, like, why, again, as you said earlier, why are we dictating international diplomacy with an irrational dictator by tweet? I 100% agree with that. What I don't agree with is when he's just tweeting in support of Iranian rebels, that means leads to impeachment. You said yesterday that he shouldn't even be tweeting about that in general. So we have to be judicious and intellectually responsible about when you're talking about when it is DEFCON 1 versus when it's just policy you disagree with.
DEFCON 1 now?
No.
I know you said that there's this system of checks and balances, but these people that he is meeting with or will be meeting with, those are his people,
Okay,
right?
can I ask you a question then? Okay, so
Yeah.
he gets impeached. Everybody here comfortable with Mike Pence as president?
More comfortable.
Are you
I'm
comfortable with
more
Mike Pence as
comfortable with
president?
it.
What I think about Mike Pence, I think he's...
See, there's booing, and this is the problem. Is like there is
Here's
no
the thing
good
with-
Republican.
Here's the thing with Mike
That's
Pence.
not so.
Mike Pence, his policies, his personality suck. But I do not believe that Mike Pence will get reelected. He has zero charisma.
I'd be comfortable with your dad sitting near the button.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
And he's a Republican.
Can I actually
Right.
bring you into
You know?
this? Because I'm
Jeff
curious.
Flynn.
You're 17, correct?
Yeah.
You're obviously incredibly politically active, engaged. Who do you think is the hope of the country? Like, if you had a politician you would choose?
I mean, quite honestly, I don't know if I would choose anyone.
So sad.
And I think what it comes down to, and I think it speaks to what my generation is looking forward to, is midterms, because what we're now focusing on is who we can appreciate and who can represent us on a more local level. And so in the House and in the Senate, and who can represent us and be our voice there.
And you have a great project that you're working on, right? She was telling us about this great project.
Yeah, it is called 18 by 18 for my generation who is turning 18 this year, who have just recently turned 18, in which midterms will be their first election, to really increase voter engagement, because I think there's a lack of nonpartisan platforms in which we can fully understand the policies that are being affected and how they affect us, and understanding that, okay, we may not be able to vote right now, or we may not be able to vote in the next couple months, but when midterms comes around, the policies that are being implemented, if we don't take action, affect us as young adults and affect our entire country.
Y'all know
And
she's going to Harvard, right?
What is it called again?
Pardon me?
Your initiative.
Oh, it's called 18 by 18.
Both the current guy in the White House and his son have been tweeting about the so-called deep state, which is a conspiracy theory that government employees loyal to Obama and Hillary are working behind the scenes to derail his presidency. Now, Does this seem a little odd? I mean, it's been around a long time, this theory of the deep state. But this, I mean, based on what the Oxford Dictionary says, which is, you know, it's a body of people, typically influential members of government agencies or the military, believed to be involved with the secret manipulation or control of government policy.
Yeah.
Is this
One
like
would think
Scandal?
if this was real, if this was real, do you think he'd still be a sitting president right now?
Isn't he saying that it's on Twitter? Isn't this on Twitter where he says that
It's everywhere.
that they're on Twitter he's saying that they're telling him who to follow on Twitter. So like Ellen DeGeneres is in here somewhere that they're
She's
telling
in the deep state?
Yeah, they're telling him to
algorithms
follow
on Twitter.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Well, it is
Maybe
worth
the Russians
noting.
are planting this stuff. How does he know? Ask Jared.
Say what?
It's worth noting that 48% of Americans think the deep state exists, according to an ABC This Network poll.
How many?
48% of Americans, and both sides believe it. Both. 46% of Republicans say there's a deep state. 45% of Democrats. 51% of independents.
Is Rowan from
And it's-
B613
but
running
what-
the deep state?
But
That's
the
ridiculous.
The deep state doesn't necessarily have to be a conspiracy about President Trump. It can be a conspiracy about Area 51. It can be a conspiracy about
Area
government
51 exists.
agencies.
Let me tell you. let me